Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 3 versus 2 siege on 0.97, the new patch that is in the works. So another little new patch preview for all of you out there who are hungry for more new patch information. We are still working on it. I'm going to have some cool new things to show you in the next little while, in particular as regards the campaign. And of course I'm going to be showing you the finale of the Winter Invitational Tournament. That'll be up on the official Reforged channel, and you will of course find a link to that channel and to other pertinent Reforged channels below in the description. So if you're hungry for more content, well, you know where to find it. But in any case, let's take a look at some of the army compositions here, and then we can get into the replay. The first army we're going to look at today is the forces of Harad, and actually this player is the one who sent me in the replay, so big thank you to FFA Muffins for supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. But in any case, he's playing as Harad. He's got some Mahud warriors. In fact, most of his army core consists of the Mahud units, who are quite numerous, but very well... They are not very well armored, I should say. Sometimes they have decent shield value, but usually they are more offensively minded. So they're light infantry units, and they'll be a little bit faster in 0.97 because of the way that we've standardized the stats. So they'll be fast, they'll hit hard, but they won't have a ton of longevity. Also got some Demons of the Desert, who are, without a doubt, a weapon of mass destruction. They are, I believe, the only body-piercing javelin currently in the game. So if you don't pay attention to them, they can do an absurd amount of damage to you. Absolutely crazy. Of course, they embody Harad's philosophy towards warfare almost perfectly, in the fact that they have 0 armor, but high offensive stats, and okay-ish melee defense, and absolutely no shield value whatsoever. So, very much the embodiment of the faction of the Haradrim, but of course they have their drawbacks. Otherwise, you know, I would be terrible at balancing the mod. In any case, over here we have some Southron pikemen, who are AP pikes. Again, Haradrim units tend to be glass cannons, and the AP is just a nice little thing that the Southron units tend to have that makes them a bit more unique. So all the Southron units, except for all the Southron spear and polearm units in any case, have AP. Very, very nasty. Also quite useful for them. Over here we got some Champions of Nafarat. Probably one of the better, I would say, infantry elite units in the game. They're a little bit better armored than your average Haradrim goon. That being said, they don't have amazing armor or shield values, but they are armor piercing, as the troll units tend to be. So very nasty, very offensively minded, and they can also buff units around them by giving them a significant amount of morale, although it is in a quite small radius around the unit. Over here, some Mahud warriors, not armor piercing, just kind of okay. We move on to the Mahud berserkers, who are armor piercing, but again, really low melee defense, really low armor, quite easy to slaughter and to lose if you are careless with them. Another company of the Southern pikemen up here, and then we have the dismounted Serpent Guard, who are, along with much of the Haradrim, getting new models, so that's super exciting. The dismounted Serpent Guard have been buffed quite significantly in 0.97, but they have shrunk by about 40 men, so it does kind of balance out. They're a little bit more of an elite tier infantry unit. For the Haradrim, they are, however, expensive, and there aren't a whole lot of them. And they're comparatively lightly armored comparative to factions like Gondor. Like Gondor's basic units have far more armor than the dismounted Serpent Guard, and the dismounted Serpent Guard also have a pretty low shield value as well, so very easy to shoot them down with arrows. A couple Trollmen of Harad here. You guys, I'm sure, know all about the Trollmen of Harad. Very deadly AP shock troops, but not a ton of melee defense, decent numbers, and of course low armor values. Over here we have catapults. Catapults do exactly what's written on the tin. They fire big balls of fiery justice and break down walls. Pretty fun. Pretty easy to get them caught out and destroyed, especially on a map like this where the defenders have a massive hill advantage and therefore range advantage, so you do have to be careful with how you deploy them. Mahud Beast Hunters and another unit of Mahud Berserkers should round off FFA Muffin's army, so let's go ahead take a look at what one of his allies has brought. This is Umbar, being commanded by DF Peak. He's brought some Narnar Royal Guard, a nice little unit, nice little support unit for Umbar, very useful in a siege like this because of the high amount of morale that they confer to units nearby. Over here we got some Beliar Footmen, good for pushing, and of course for any surprise cavalry assaults that the defenders may launch against you. Of course our pikemen, Nice and cheap. Got some Corsair infantry here with their armor upgrades, looking real snazzy in that scale mail armor. There are some Alcaron's Legion mixed in there somewhere. You can sort of see them. A really nice elite corps that can be used to push and to hold the line. Just an all-around, very strong infantry unit that's that Umbar can use to consolidate or to push, as I said. One thing to note about the Alcaron's Legion, if you are not already in the know, and chances are you are, but just in case, they are locked morale, as many Numenorian units tend to be, although somewhat ironically, not within the Numenorian roster itself. Yeah, making them extremely survivable. They have so much longevity. Meanwhile, over here, got some Corsair Blackguard from Peak, Corsair Archers. There's some more stuff. I know he's got some Rangers of Castamere. They might just be hiding somewhere, maybe. What do we got down here? Ah, Trebuchet. Perfect. And that ought to do it. Let's move on now to the third and final attacking army. We have the forces of Rune, being commanded by Lucky Hussar. He's brought some Eastern Hunters here, some Balkoth Sapphire Bladesmen hidden in front of them. And to round off his elite corps, Draga's Wrath crossbows. Everybody loves these guys. They currently don't have a flaming projectile, which is a real shame. I'm sure they will get one at some point in the future, but for the time being, they are basically body-piercing crossbows. Yeah, and that's pretty kick-ass. Moving on over here, Eastern Crossbowmen. 2 units of Eastern Crossbowmen. Another company of Eastern Hunters. And then the Golden Boys. The famous Golden Boys, for which Rune is so rightly renowned. Low Gamp Rim here. These are halberds, armor piercing, not quite the same range as pikemen, but more range than your average Joe. Eastern Clansmen here with their full upgrade, so they look nice and gold and shiny as well. More Eastern Clansmen. Got some Eastern Warriors here with their armor upgrade, looking very iconically Easterling. And these Eastern Warriors have actually gotten a nice buff as well. They kind of act as they're a more offensively minded, but more lightly armored and low on defense unit that is sort of analogous to Gondor infantry, but of course they don't have a shield and they do a little bit more damage, and have less armor but more melee defense. Over here, Eastern Hunters, pretty standard unit. In the center, we have more Gamp Rim. Got a catapult, of course. This is a siege battle. Catapults can be useful for knocking down the walls, although on the Dale map, the walls are a little bit wonky, and collapsing them doesn't always mean that you can go through them, so you're going to see a lot of that in this battle. Scion Rim. Couple companies of Scion Rim. I think that's a Flag Rim mixed in there as well. Flag Rim or AP infantry. They've got a nice little buff in .97. Mostly to the tune of some melee defense, and I think maybe a little bit of extra armor, so they're quite survivable. I think they got 1 more point of damage as well, but still relatively low damage. They are quite expensive in addition to. Scion Rim, very useful for the Inspire effect that they have. And got some more Flag Rim over here as well. And then a second, or perhaps third company of Eastern Warriors. That's going to do it for the attackers. Let's see what the defenders have brought today. Alright, so the defenders have, quite rightly, in my opinion, dispersed their armies together. So we're just going to go through them as we see them. It just makes it a hell of a lot easier. So got some Romana Marksmen up here in the wall. We got one player, of course, playing as a Numenor. And that would be Eclipse 2500 of the Dark Cloud, one of our testers. And they're pretty nicely positioned. Second company over there, manning the other side of the battlements. Down here, got some Romana Marines, an interesting unit, which are playing with a new trait nowadays. They have it's like the Prec or Precision. I'm just going to call it Precision trait because that's just kind of how I've remembered it. Not necessarily, PREC doesn't necessarily stand for that, but that's just what I'm going to call it. And they toss one volley of their 2 javelins that they have, and immediately rush into combat. And then you can use them again to do that later, which I think is a neat trait. Is a little bit trickier to get them to fire all of their ammunition at the same time. Gotta stick them in the defensive stance though, so pro tip. Over here, Alcaron's Legion, backing up some Romana Sentinels, and they are going to be backing up in turn some Fountain Guard and some Gondor Infantry. That is a lot of nasty, pointy sticks. Not gonna be fun for the Easterlings to try and muscle their way through. Over here, more Alcaron's Legion, second company of Romana Marines. Altogether, very tight defense. Not going to be fun for Rune on their own to try and bust through here. Got some Seafarers of Nindamos, who are honestly one of my favorite looking units. Them and the Alcaron's Legion, the Royal Legion of Armenelos are probably my 2 favorite Numenor units. These guys, not just for their aesthetic, but for the support that they can bring to the table. They are technically done as throwing axes, so they don't have armor piercing, but they do have a higher base damage than your average javelin, although they do have less ammunition on average. But that's okay, because they are a cheaper unit that Numenor can bring two up to guard their flanks, or to be a pain for especially lightly armored cavalrymen. Altogether, a really nice, versatile unit, and that is why I love them. Up here, Numenorian Shadow Guard, really nicely placed. Ooh, they're going to rain hell on anybody that comes through that gatehouse. Over here, Ravenna Marines lining the battlements. And actually, this is why I love the Dale map. I love this tiered double-walled defense. It's absolute hell for attackers to try and get through. The other side's a little bit easier, but damn, it's so much fun to, when you're the defender, or even when you're the attacker, trying to find interesting and creative ways to suppress the defenders up on the battlements and to try and bust through as quickly as you can. It's certainly a race against time. Yeah, like the Dale map for that reason. Not so much for the buggy walls, though. Moving on over here into the center, got a Trebuchet. I believe this belongs to Eclipse of the Dark Cloud. A pretty strong unit. And one thing to note about, well, you'll see just how strong it can be in this battle, but one thing to note about artillery crews generally is that I've actually given them real stats. So previously they were just kind of throwaway units after the artillery piece ran out of ammunition. But now they have stats based on like a template from a similar kind of unit. So I believe these guys use it's like Arnorian archers kind of as their base stats. So when you throw your trebuchet crews in there, they're actually suitably strong, fitting kind of the model and the amount of training that an engineer would need to actually be accepted as a useful member of the engineering corps. I mean, they're not idiots. Or flunkies. They're trained warriors. They've seen some experience and more. So to me, that's pretty appropriate. Over here, got some Axemen of Lasarnak, full armor upgrades. Probably got some attack upgrades as well. Made a little bit smaller in this patch, so they're not quite a trash tier unit anymore. They're a little bit more of an AP human swordmaster, but of course they have an axe. Speaking of swordmasters, got some Raven Helms here of Caer Andros. Some Nimlothian Honor Guards, looking very sexy with their new model, alongside some Fountain Guard. Wardens of the White Tower. Nasty combination of troops here in the center. Athelian Rangers, of course, so 2 units of Rangers for the defenders, because why would you not bring them into siege? You have to be nuts not to. 2 companies here, the Pelargir Marines. And this is where we get into one of my other favorite units, Royal Legion of Armenelos. They really need no introduction. They're a kick-ass unit. They're locked morale. They can shield wall. Actually, one of 2 units in Numenor's roster that can shield wall push. So you can use them to spearhead, and of course they are locked morale, so they ain't going nowhere. Narnoi Sentinels, basically the same unit from Umbar, but they've got a little bit more of a fitting skin for Numenor. Moving on over here, Forebearers of Valakirka, formerly known as the Osgiliath Guard. They are more elite, so they won't run as easily. There are less of them. There's been a lot of that going on in this patch. And I think it's for the better. A lot of smaller units have been made suitably strong so that you can really use them effectively to support your more numerous units like the Gondor Infantry that we see in front of them. And again, same combination over here, Gondor Infantry, Forebearers of Valakirka, 2 units of the Marksmen of Caer Andros, 1, 2. And I got some more troops up here on the wall. At least 2 companies of the Ramessekor Garrison Archers. Very tanky, not so offensively minded, but still quite useful in their own way. Got some Ravenna Sentinels over here, and some Alcarondas Legion. And I think that is going to do it for the defenders, and therefore for the army comps. So without any further ado, oh no, I missed somebody, didn't I? Got some more Ravenna Sentinels over here, and the Alcarondas Legion, and that's going to do it. Let's jump into the battle. And so it begins. As the battle opens, Peak is of course going to move to consolidate with his ally. A pretty good idea. His forces, probably due to, I would guess, wonky deployment zones. It's really funny to just watch these things just teeter in absurd ways as Peak begins to move everything over there. But as I was saying, his forces were a little bit scattered, probably because of some deployment zone strangeness. Well, let's get a little bit distracted here and take a nice look at Erebor in the back. Don't mind the whiteness in the windows. I swear there's something in there. It is not the edge of the world. Let's pop on over to the other side and see what exactly Rune is up to for the time being. Well, it seems like Rune is going to be the first into the breach, so the honor of First Blood is going to belong to Lucky Hussar. Ooh, and they're really just raining hell down upon the Eastron clansmen. With their armor upgrades, they make effective fodder. They are going to soak this up pretty well, but you can see the casualties beginning to mount. Many of their dead being left behind them. And unfortunately, I don't think Lakiasar realizes this, but these walls actually can't be scaled by these siege towers. This is a complete and total waste of time. 'Tis sad but true. This is fighting on Dale is an infantry fight through and through, which is part of why I find it so interesting. It's a different take on siege battles, even if it is largely because of a bug. Ooh, what did I see back here? Almost those poor rangers. Some of them got flattened by a nice shot from that catapult. The first ring of Dale is already on fire as some of those artillery shots go astray. Meanwhile, over here, it seems like the attacker's going to take their time. And perhaps rightly so. Opening up breaches in the walls, they won't be able to use them by rushing through them and outflanking the defenders. But even though you can't move through them, you can certainly shoot through them. So that's going to give them a lot of flexibility with how they want to approach this. And of course, the only way they can get into the city is through this central gatehouse here. So if they weren't doing this, they'd be in a lot of trouble, because you can see the formidable defenses that the defenders have already set up here. Gondor's got a lot of big pointy sticks waiting to greet the lightly armored Haradrim as they rush through this door. So if they were to simply just run in here, it'd be a bit of a massacre. So this is a very tactically sound approach, shall we say, to fighting on Dale. You can see Numenor moving forward with their trebuchet, possibly as a counter to the attackers, but they're a lot more limited because of the line of sight that they're afforded. So I probably wouldn't have brought this forward so early. I would certainly have kept this in reserve, because you're going to be fighting the attacker's game. Oh, looks like Rune is already through the walls. We'll go and check that out in a second. Just let me finish this thought. Because you're really playing the attacker's game. The only time you're going to be able to fire on anybody is when the attackers decide when and if they want to expose themselves to your trebuchet, which in a lot of ways gives them an advantage. Certainly you're going to have to move to suit the attacker's movements, which could potentially give the enemy's artillery the first crack at your own. And because of the narrow pathways inside the city, there's not a whole lot of places that they can go. Not really possible for them to spread out. Yeah, there's a lot of implications for that. Let's pop on over to the Rune side of things. And this is going to be a hell of a fight. First into the breach, the Eastron warriors dying like flies to the Numenorean infantry, as you would expect. I did mention that they got a buff, but they are not up to taking Numenoreans head on. Rune probably never will be. Not in most cases, in any case, when the Numenoreans are able to be formed up like this and funnel the Easterlings into a choke point. This is always going to go Numenor's way. That being said, Lakiasar doesn't really need to win this fight. All he's really got to do is keep them busy while his more numerous allies on the other side do most of the dirty work. Luxai and Rin being moved forward, solid support unit, also good for pushing, which I think is going to be key to Lakiasar's strategy to pressuring the defenders. Because if he keeps going like this, this front line is not going to move. They're just going to be hacked to bits. So many supporting units up here as well. Romana Marines, quite nicely placed, I think, to rain down javelins upon the advancing Easterlings. So we're going to pop over to the other side. Pardon me. And see how things are going. So it seems like the Muhad warriors have brought a ram to bear against this only way through the Dale defenses, but certainly not the only way around them. That's going to be a very bloody struggle for the gatehouse. A lot of these more lightly armored units, they're going to have a hard time against the heavily armored Gondorians. They do have some pikes. That being said, they can match the pike wall of the Gondorians and the Numenorian supporters quite well, certainly offensively. But yeah, it's going to be a tough fight, but I think the attackers have every tool that they need in order to really give the defenders a run for their money. More and more holes opening up in the walls here as the attackers make Swiss cheese of the battlements. Down go those pikes. Garrison archers getting themselves up here quickly. Ooh, that's a really nice place for them to be, honestly. The walls here work for the for the defenders, but so do these holes. I mean, if they were to get some archer units in here, especially the Ramesek garrison archers, they have like ground level seats to any units that the attackers may try to hide, or some of the more important squishy units like their rangers and things like that. Especially the infantry. The infantry can't answer them. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see some interesting cat and mouse play here. At least I hope we will. Garrison archers quickly filing onto the battlements, however. Not a terrible idea. There are some risks. They could have these walls blown up from under them, of course, by the catapult from Harad right there, and from the Numenorians, but not from the Numenorians. Oh, sort of, kind of. Umbar are Numenorians, and from Umbar as well. That is a little bit of a risk. Ooh, leaving themselves exposed here. I think that's what the Haradrim are certainly going after. It's a great opportunity. Enfilading fire into a tightly packed formation like this is certainly cause to fear. And there's a lot of reasons to be wary of that, but oh yeah, now you can see why. This is unfortunate. It sort of speaks of a lack of situational awareness on the part of the defenders, which, to be fair, in a large-scale battle like this, on a massive citadel like Dale, it is easy to lose track of things that are happening on the field, but you definitely have to be vigilant, and this is why. All these poor troops here, just suffering grievously. It seems like they've noticed, but they're unwilling to pull back the forebears of Valkyrka, which I personally do not understand. I mean, this could be fixed by simply adjusting their formation a little bit. They could just pull these guys back, make a straight line here, and hide these guys over on this side, and they wouldn't even be able to be shot by any attacking troops that try to use this gap to their advantage. So. There's some deployment issues, shall we say, the defenders should probably take care of. Marines of Pelargir nearby and ready to support, but of course the attackers won't advance until this obstacle has been cleared, or just otherwise driven from the field temporarily. Carandros marksmen, things like this. It's like moving the Marines of Pelargir forward this early. It's playing your hand. Before your enemy is in a position where they can't really pull back. That's when you want to commit units like that. And it's very clear what they plan to do, and of course it's going to be clear to any veteran player, but still, that is something to bear in mind. Ooh, what do we have going on over here? A lot of dead Easterlings. Some Fountain Guard battalions here have been committed. Eastron Warriors moving up. Ooh, one of the catapults is on fire. It's a pretty cool shot right there. I quite enjoy this. Maybe we'll make that a thumbnail. I don't know. There's a couple good pictures, good moments that we can make it to our thumbnail. But for the time being, ooh, those low flag rim trying to push into Remenda Sentinels and Fountain Guard. Even this comparatively small company here, they're gonna have no problem holding these guys off. Looks like the Easterlings managed to muscle their way in, but a lot of these troops were cut down by the Numenorians, as you would expect. There's a lot of heavy-hitting, armor-piercing firepower here. This is not a fight I think that Rune is capable of winning, at least not on their own. They are being effectively double-teamed here. More reinforcements coming in. Gondor infantry, just trying to back these guys up with a little bit of numbers. Normally against Flag Rim, they won't do so hot. Really, it just adds mass. Prevents Rune from just pushing in and eliminating the range advantage that the Fountain Guard and the Remenda Sentinels have. Let's see what's going on the other side. Ooh, I quite like this. I like this right here. Ooh, of course, our Blackguards pummeling those forebears of Valkyrka. Of course, the armor-piercing damage of javelins, very, very effective against heavily armored but shieldless units, like the forebears of Valkyrka. One thing to note about this build is that this is my fault, really. I forgot to balance the Corsair Blackguards along the same lines as other javelin units. So they have higher damage and more ammunition than they should have. So this is really my fault, and that's why they're able to just scythe through most of that unit. At this point in .97, javelins are extremely useful for softening enemy units, but not necessarily for completely and utterly obliterating them in a matter of moments, the way that they have been in the past. Gondor infantry charging into battle against the Mahud warriors. That's a hard one. Although with the higher defensive values of the Gondor infantry, I would normally give that to them. Mahud warriors are coming in incredible numbers, however. Both the forebears of Adakirka and the range of those pikes, this is going to be a no-brainer. Trollmen of Harad, though. That might be enough to tip the scales. And a second and far larger wave of Haradrim infantry moving in. Got some range in the form of the Southron pikes and then some armor piercing. That's going to give the Gondorians a run for their money. Of course, our Blackguard still being an ever-present nuisance in the side of these forebears of Valakirka, slowly but surely taking bites out of them. Forebears being bull-rushed here a little bit by the Mahud warriors as they push their way through, using their superior numbers. Ooh, some javelins there from the Pelargir Marines. Taking a nice bite out of the Corsair Blackguards, who've actually taken about half their unit so far in damage. In casualties, I should say. Gondor infantry, I don't know if these guys are necessary at this point, and it's certainly not a good idea just because of the Corsair Blackguards. An archer unit, let's say like the Carinados Marksman would be extremely useful, and that seems like that's the trebuchet of Eclipse gone right there. Some brilliant shots by the attacking trebuchet. It's just doing some serious work this battle so far. Really, really lucky shots. Normally, like, the trebuchet is not quite so accurate as this, but, like, yeah, not bad. You can see it took down some troops here as well. Some Carinados Marksmen. That's a hefty loss indeed. But while all that's going on, let's pop on over to the other side and see how the Easterlings have managed to fare. Well, the defenders have bolstered their position, and the Easterlings don't really have anywhere to go. They don't have the room to maneuver and to be as flexible as their allies on the other side, just because of this massive trench here. And of course the walls that they can't scale. So it's just going to be a slog. Lucky Asar is feeling up to the challenge, however. And he is rushing in there with everything that his golden boys can muster. That'll be an interesting fight. The Easterlings are quite numerous and quite deadly and well-trained. So, yeah, they'll be able to hold the line there for a while. Over here, it seems like the defenders have managed to stem the tide so far. They've got the attackers bottled up, although for how much longer that will be the case remains to be seen. You can see the attackers really leveraging the gaps that they've opened in the battlements of the city. Crossbow Corsairs being brought forward. Now, that is a problem for sure. They have an easy shot into the defending infantry, and I think this is going to be a perennial thorn in the side for the defenders. At least as long as they are willing to commit to this choke point here, right in front of these units that the attackers are using to exploit this gap. If only these Ramsek garrisons still had ammunition, they could just pop over here, really put some pressure on those on the Corsair crossbows and drive them back. Over here, yeah, this is good. Whether they intend to or not, a push like this, trying to break the enemy center, is going to force the defenders to either give up this spot entirely and fall back to secondary positions, or to commit more. And it seems like they've gone with the latter. Some Marines of Pelargir and some Naranar Sentinels in there. Ooh, but that trebuchet is nearby. See, this is, I think, a little bit of over-eagerness on the part of the defenders, and oh, it's going to cost them if they stay here for too much longer. Ramsekor garrison archers now being thrown into the fray, but oh, it doesn't really matter that much. It's really hard to tell who they killed more of that time. Oh, that was definitely a lot of defending troops there. The Royal Legion of Armenelos just getting absolutely hammered. Demons of the Desert now being brought to bear. Those body-piercing javelins, this is the perfect time to use them. And this elite push here from Numenor is just going to be blunted in a matter of moments by superior firepower and positioning of the defenders, or the attackers, sorry. Yeah, this was not an engagement to go all in on, I don't think. At least not until units like the Demons of the Desert and the Trebuchet had either been neutralized or used their ammunition. This is just not worth it. Pelargir of Marines trying to answer back, but I think the damage that's been done here, that was a huge amount of money. That was nearly 3,000 florins right there worth of troops invested in those two units. On the Trebuchet firing back against the Marines of Pelargir, getting a nice shot. Actually making them think twice about maybe holding this position. Royal Legion of Armenelos heavily reduced before they could really be effective at all. I don't think there's any of the Narnar Sentinels left at all. Maybe one or two. That was an absolute massacre. The Numenorians going to double down, though. Another company of, or rather, the first company of Alcaron's Legion joining the fray. And some reinforcements being brought to bear. But again, I don't think that this is worth it. I think that the attacking position is far too strong, and they would be much better served by pulling back, cutting their losses, or at least trying to force the attackers into a bit of a disadvantageous position, because you can see that there's a lot of defending infantry still on this side. They can defend some of their archers. At least I think these guys might still have ammunition. They certainly have some marksmen of Carandos right here, so they were to be brought down. There would be no answer for the attackers to them, and they could just fire at them instead of pushing forward with their infantry and just hold their ground with their reinforcements over here. I think that would be a much smarter decision. Try and just use the battlements to their advantage, which is what they should be doing as the defenders. But it seems, again, over-eagerness is winning out here against, I think, sensibility and caution. There goes somebody's general. Probably the Numenorians. Ooh, what do we see? What do we got over here? Rune has made some progress, and the Gondorians have been forced to commit a company of Locksmen of Asarnak. Maybe not so much. Axemen of Lasarnak. And they're doing pretty well. Is that some Rangers I see firing down? Romena Marksmen, certainly. Romena Marines over here, ready to charge in and complete this encirclement. I don't think there's any reason really not to. The Easterlings don't have the positioning that's that their allies do on the other side, although this is quite sneaky. I like this. Lucky Asar has managed to get a company of his Eastern Hunters up here in the battlements, using them to his advantage to foil the defenders a little bit, and I quite like that. Oh, Romena Marines, you saw them toss their jabbies in there, and out come the swords. I really like this trait. I think it's neat. Ooh, they're just hammering those Gamperim, who can't really fight in formation. You can see that they're trying to keep ranks. They're definitely in spear wall formation right now, but it's not really availing them anything. Even with the armor piercing, I think the Romena Marines got this in the bag. Ooh, we're going to see a point-blank javelin volley? That would be a beautiful thing. Look at that. Look at that. And then out come the swords for the rest of the unit who didn't have a chance to toss. Damn, I love this trait. Have I mentioned that 10 times already? Well, here you go, 11th. I love this trait. And they are beating back the Easterlings, and I don't think Lucky Asar really has anything. Well, he does have a card left to play in the form of the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen. They're moving forward now. This will be an interesting one. I don't think the Lucky Asar is going to win there, but if he manages to inflict some serious casualties, it's certainly going to help out his allies on the other side, who have thoroughly and truly broken through the defense here. Ooh, what do we got? Another positioning error here by the Marines of Pelargir. Most of their javelins seem to be going into the destroyed trebuchet. This is the kind of stuff you really need to think about in Medieval 2 and in Reforged, because they may be destroyed, but they still have their, how do I say that? There is still pathfinding associated with these things, and collision for projectiles. And that's a lot of killing power that they just lost out on right there. And now they push forwards, and they're encircling these troops. If they could destroy everything here, that would be wonderful. Well, that would be an absolute boon, because I think that's a good deal of their, at least half of their infantry would certainly have been, the attackers' infantry, I should say, would have been expended. But is it worth it? I mean, look, they're still exploiting this gap. We've got some Rangers up here now. That's going to be bad, especially against the Romena Sentinels. Trebuchet is still here. I think the defenders, they needed to pick their battles a little bit more wisely, and it has cost them. Like, look at this. That's an incredible amount of money dead on the ground right there. Not to, think of these poor Numenorians' lives in terms of just crass monetary value, but this is a lot of resources that they didn't need to lose, or at least if they had pulled back or maybe tried to use the battlements a little bit better. And this is not something that needed to happen, I don't think. Carandos marksmen have now been brought to bear, but it's too little too late. There's no defense left for them. There's only so much that they can do. They are doing great, but the Hashari are going to get in there. let's see. These guys in defensive mode. If they're not, then they'll push forward against the Hashari, and they should beat them. Although that being said, the Hashari are no slouch in melee. They don't have a ton of armor. They have great melee defense and a fair amount of damage. Whereas the Caramandos Marksmen have okay melee defense, good damage, but really high armor. So it'll be an interesting matchup. But yeah, why keep them there? I mean, it was quite obvious that they were going to send something forward to try and silence them. Again, just not a lot of situational awareness on the part of the defenders, which is a little bit unfortunate to see. Well, the encirclement from the Numenorians has been thoroughly thwarted. And it seems like this infantry blob here is safe. Marksmen of Karandros fighting alongside the axemen of Lasarnak. They should butcher their way through these remaining attacking troops here. But once those pikes get in there, it'll be a foregone conclusion for the defenders. It seems like there is a little bit of falling back here. It means Marines of Polar Gear still have ammunition. Ramesek Garrison Archers. Fountain Guard moving forward. Rangers of Athelion down to 38. I think I remember what happened to them. Yeah, a lot of them just got sniped out by a friggin' trebuchet. They just kept committing things into the line of sight of this one gap, which is just such a problem for the defenders so far. Yeah, and they just kept losing, being bled of their valuable resources. That being said, the attackers, of course, have spent quite a lot getting in here. Demons of the Desert ammunition, Rangers. There's a fair amount of their dead on the ground as well. It's fairly even, all things considered, 65 to 65. So the defenders are still holding out. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with how ineffective Rune's assault was. You can see they've managed to break through a couple times, but it's just there's just a few points here where they managed to push into the first level. They got no farther, and it's just clumps and clumps of golden boys dead on the ground. And what's left? Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen. They're trying to shoot. Let's see if any of them actually manage to. That would be devastating. Like point blank into the Romena infantry. That would be a massacre. Oh. This guy might. Boom! Ooh, nasty. Yeah, he killed a bunch of them. But that's going to be all she wrote. Although the Numenorians are pulling back for some reason. Shadow Guard now going toe-to-toe with the Dragon's Wrath crossbows. I presume they're out of ammunition, but this is not a fight that they're going to win unaided. Ah, I see the reason. Eclipse is pulling back the majority of his forces to move back towards the central plaza here, and that's where the defenders are going to make their final stand. Another company of troops from the first level of defense being pulled back, but there were so many good opportunities, I think, here for the defenders to play a little bit smarter. But the canniness and the positioning of the attackers was really on point in this battle, and the situational awareness and the I would say the tactical thinking of the defenders was not really here to the same extent that it was for the attackers, and they've really suffered for it. Meanwhile, over here, Carados Marksmen, they are brave, but they are going to lose this fight. Brave, well-trained, but ultimately against these kinds of odds, especially backed up by Narnar Royal Guard, and now Alcaron S Legion, it's game over. And there you have it. Oh man, that trebuchet, or someone's siege equipment in any case, still firing. Ineffective, however, against the inner defenses here. Well, the defenders are nicely sheltered by the various buildings inside the city, and that's going to be a boon for them, I think. They're not going to be picked to pieces by the artillery superiority of the attackers, and they've lost their trebuchet, so they have no real answer to them unless the attackers make a big mistake and commit something forward to a point where they shouldn't. But yeah, tough fight for the defenders so far. If they looking at their reserves here, Raven Helms, Fountain Guard, Nimlothian Honor Guard. Someone just got flattened. Romena Marksman. They've still got a decent amount of Rangers there too. They have all the tools that I think that they need to win this fight, but it really just depends on how they use them, and so far they haven't used their resources as effectively as they could have. Karandros Marksman now fleeing in the face of this inexorable advance from the attackers. Corsair archers quickly filing in. More deadly fireballs flying overhead. What do we got here? Some Romana marksmen. Not going to let the attackers gain this street without any resistance. Firing down into these lightly armored forces. They're going to just reap a deadly, deadly harvest among the ranks of these Umbar and Harad infantry. But I don't know. The attackers still have rangers. They still have units like the Southbound pikemen. Probably better to save their ammunition. Oh, and the crossbows as well. That's something I would definitely be saving my my valuable bow ammunition for. Demons of the Desert as well. Seems like some of them still have ammo. Corsair pikemen, there's a lot of really juicy and deadly targets for them to use those random marksmen on, so I would probably save them for that instead. What do we have over here? Has Rune been completely annihilated? Yeah, we didn't see too much from Rune, but we got, I think, a pretty good sense of the way that battle went. There was not a ton that Lucky Asar could do. He did take up a lot of resources, but now they've been freed up. And there's a lot of infantry over here. If it comes down to an infantry versus infantry fight, given the tools that the defenders have, I would give it to the defenders. This is really gonna be, of course, it's going to be about how the players play this. But the defenders, or the attackers rather, so far have been very, very canny and use their surroundings, I think, in the best way that they could have. So I expect to see more of that. And despite the quality disadvantage for the attackers, I think that they've got a good shot. Same as the defenders do at this point. Let's take a look. Still dead even. Dead even, and everyone is badly mauled at this point. The first wave, here they come. Some heavily reduced Corsair forces, some Belgair units. Narnar Royal Guard nearby. It's going to be instrumental in keeping some of those more tired, lower-tier Umbarim units in the fray for as long as possible. Ooh, Harad still has a singular catapult piece left. That's going to be important as well, depending on how they want to use that. Ooh. I mean, I said that there was a quality disparity between the attackers and the defenders, but here we have the champions of Nafarat. Full company of them. Interesting. That'll be very interesting indeed. Mahout Beast Hunters, looking like they're out of ammo. Some Mahout Berserkers as well. It's a lot of AP. Look at this. Of course, this is fodder for those 38 Rangers. They will cut this down to size quite quickly if the attackers are careless. Same with the Corsair pikemen. Looks like the final assault is about to begin as the Haradrim stream down the this central pathway into the plaza in the middle. Some resistance here. It seems like the defenders are launching sorties, not just letting them take the ground, which is normally a good idea. But given the artillery piece that's nearby, and some of the other nasty things that the attackers have, I don't think it's a good idea to use the Fountain Guard in this way. I would probably try and force the attackers to come into the center and use these battlements again. Using the battlements to their advantage is something that the defenders need to do to try and make up for the losses that they've suffered so far, but they don't seem willing to do that. The Fountain Guard are really taking a beating. Of course, their infantry coming in for a flank. I wonder if they're sending anything else around this way. Oh my god! Casimir's Rangers. Oh, this is so perfect. Peek's a really good player, has really good... I find that he is able to pre-plan quite well, and this is a perfect example of that. Using his opponent's, again, over-eagerness to his advantage. And now Vision, of course, sees what's going on here. He's going to lose some Fountain Guard, and that's going to be a painful lesson for him. The Fountain Guard are going to get out of there without suffering at least catastrophic losses. Champions of Nafarat, not doing so well. Marines of Pelargir, though, nearby. This would be a great time to revenge himself upon the attackers by targeting down these champions of Nafarat with those Pelargir Marines. A really good time to do so. I would even pull back the Garrison Archers in order to give myself a better shot. Fountain Guard, not exactly where they need to be. Again, they're still exposed out here. The attackers aren't just going to walk into Fountain Guard. I'm not too sure what Vision is thinking there. I'm being pretty critical of the defenders. I feel pretty bad. I mean, they have managed to keep this tight so far. but the attackers are pulling ahead by a few percentage points. And that can easily snowball into a defeat, even though it's just 3 right now. Well, that's all we've seen from Rune, so it's really going to come down to his to the attacker's remaining allies. Champions of Nafarat leading the way, as they should. As they should. The defenders can hold out here quite a while, and now that the attackers are in here, I don't think that they're going to risk firing their artillery anymore. But still, it would have been, I think, more advantageous, and they would have had more options to use their missile units, especially if they had opted for a bit of a different approach here. We've got over here Mahud Berserker. It's going to be difficult getting used to that slight change in name. Moving in as a bit of a first wave here, as much of the attacking chaff. Some of the veterans from the Battle of the Gatehouse lead the way alongside the champions of Nafarat. And the first wave is preparing itself to crash against the Nimlothian Honor Guard and the Fountain Guard. That's a lot of winged helms here. They'll hold out for a while, especially with the range advantage that the Fountain Guard have over the champions of Nafarat. It's going to be tough for them to overcome. Ooh, look at that. Not worth it. I would have targeted something else, I think. I think that's a bit of a waste of ammunition. Some questionable choices here on the part of the defenders. I would certainly be going after a unit like the champions of Nafarat, although it may be because of the positioning of the defenders' lines that they just can't. They just can't hit the champions of Nafarat. Meanwhile, what's going on over here? Alcaronda's Legion spearheading an assault from the attackers. Demons of the Desert nearby. Casimir's Rangers. This is a big danger right here. Something that needs to be dealt with. Rangers of Ithilien winding up. Casimir's Rangers back here. They're going to be pretty easy prey. What are they firing into the rear of? Ooh, this is where Gondor was winning. And now that's all going to turn around. What have they got in here? They managed to get the Romena Marines in here against Demons of the Desert. They are quite exposed. So the Ithilien Rangers are going to be able to just chew through them. And indeed they are. Look at them drop. FFA Muffins, I'm sure, is going to recognize the danger that he's in and try and pull out. I'd be surprised if he did not. Ooh, arced shots, though. Again, not a great angle. Ooh, Casimir's Rangers now being targeted down. Not a bad idea. But this is a mistake. The Romena Marines need to be helping out the Ithilien Rangers. If they were targeting down the Demons of the Desert and the Casimir's Rangers, that's two really important and really vulnerable units to missiles, especially, that they would sweep from the field. And FFA Muffin still hasn't pulled these guys out. There are options here. Ithilien Rangers now being targeted down by the Rangers of Castamere. Even with the head start the Ithilien Rangers have, the numbers disparity is going to play against them. Well, that's pretty nasty. These poor Ithilien Rangers. That was another ace in the hole that the defenders had, and now they no longer have. Crossbow Corsairs being absolutely massacred. You can see their bodies all the way down the street. But the pikemen plus the trollmen, they are doing work. Oh man, I really wish that these Romena Marines would just turn around. It's really bugging me. Another bit of a lapse in judgment there, I think, from the defenders, or at the very least they didn't notice the opportunity that they had in front of them. And over here, the Fountain Guard, Nimlothian Honor Guard, and some Romena Marksmen holding their ground. Champions of Nafarat, they are taking a beating, but as long as they're around, the attackers will persist. Alcaronda's Legion going up against their progenitors here in the form of the Numenorians. They're trading pretty well. This flanking movement here might show some promise for the defenders to try and bring things back. Oh, over here in the center, Wardens of the White. Yeah, pushing against Alcaronda's Legion. That's going to be an ace in the hole. These Demons of the Desert have been in here for so long. Oh, they could have been destroyed already by the Romena Marksmen. It's just so disappointing that the defenders didn't take advantage of that while they had the opportunity. What do we got back here? Mahud Beast Hunters still have ammunition. I think it's fair at this point to call it. The attackers are going to win this. I think so. I would be surprised if they did not. I don't know if the defenders... I think they might have given up their opportunity. Too many opportunities that they let slip by, and it's going to cost them. What do we got over here? Crossbow Corsairs taking pot shots at Romena Marines who are just kind of standing around foolishly. It's been unfortunate. They could easily move forward and rout those Crossbow Corsairs. It seems like the Alcaronda's Legion are being beaten back by a combination of Gondorian reinforcements and of course the Numenorian Marines, who have held their ground admirably against their fallen sons. And that flanking movement, I would say it's tipping the scales a little bit. At the very least, the Umbar are taking casualties they wouldn't have otherwise taken. Over here, says victory is assured. If they can beat these guys, that's a big deal. Ah, the Muhad Beast Hunters. Yeah, here they come. And they're reloading. This is game over. Again, this doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. The South Runs are going to get through here. They're going to be mauled quite heavily. And then a marksman are going to pull out of there. If they can catch the Mahud Beast Hunters, that would be awesome. Well, they are going to kind of nip little bits off of the unit, but it's not going to be enough to really shut them down. If they can win over here, though, it would be a big thing indeed. Rangers of Athelion farming into the Demons of the Desert. I don't think there's enough of them to really make this count. Men and Marines did already against the Crossbow Corsairs, but now they're being forced to be pulled back. And now the Mahud Beast Hunters, I think they're going to escape. This is going to be where they get away. Yeah. The Southron Pikemen and the Trollmen? I was going to say Troll Hunters. No, Trollmen. They managed to make it through. They're going to kind of meat shield for the Mahud Beast Hunters, and they're going to circle back around. And because of the absence of those Romana marksmen, that's going to seal the fate of the brave Fountain Guard. Defenders are pushing their way through. Another wave of Mahud Berserkers. And 96 to 85. It was a good effort, but there was a lot of things that the defenders could have done better. This was certainly, I would say this was a winning fight for the defenders. Not necessarily that it was a foregone conclusion that they would win, but this was a fight that they didn't need to lose. But there was a lot of mistakes they made that kind of just over time cascaded into critical mass, and now here they are. Outnumbered, isolated, surrounded. Where's the White Tower? God, they look fancy. With Taro's new models. Quote-unquote new models. Ooh, nasty. Mahud Beast Hunters destroying lives. Muhad Berserkers coming in from the rear. It's maybe going to hit some of the Demons of the Desert as well, but it's going to hit more of the Wardens of the White Tower. I think they're locked morale, though, so they will fight forever.
Our men have taken control of the city.
And there it is, 99 to 86. The attackers have made it through. I'm sure many of you are out there were like, well, no duh, they made it through. They're the attackers. They always win. Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes, in any case. We can definitely see why they won in this battle. A lot of mistakes, a lot of positioning errors, a lot of playing into the attacker's hands. Has brought the defenders quite low here. Oh, look at that poor bastard. There's always someone that tweaks out like this. He's going to get planted in the ground alongside his brother there. A grim totem. I'm in a marksman making a last stand. It's the fearsome trollmen. Numenorians are brave. They might even end up fighting to the death here. Even against these fear-causing units, slowly but surely being dragged down. And there goes the Gondorian general. I think that's going to put a nail in the coffin of this defense. It's basically over at this point. We're going to go ahead and fast forward here. There's one Romana Marine still in there. But he's been brought low. And there you have it, 100% 86. A good effort. A good effort, I would say. And the last stand was certainly very entertaining to watch. But yeah, I've said it a million times by now. I'll say it one more time. A lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes on the part of the defenders. But hopefully, at least, we all learned something today. Certain things about paying attention to positioning, especially with the Pelargir Marines, where they tossed most of their javelins into a trebuchet. Very unfortunate, and it did cost them time and resources that they didn't necessarily have to lose. Losing the Athelian Rangers the way they did too, we could see what that trebuchet did. And a lot of that does kind of come down to luck. The trebuchet was just so nasty. I hope we actually get to see the kills for it. Unfortunately not. We're going to see Harad's kills. Champions of Nafret, doing great. Trollman of Harad. Yeah, a lot of work done there from the elites. 510 on the Demons of the Desert. Well, the Numenorians just walked into it. They have nobody to blame but themselves in that case. And the rest of the army just doing kind of okay. Southern Pikemen doing quite well for their cost. Dismounted Serpent Guard, 94. Not bad. Not bad at all. And, yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. And I hope you will join me for whatever comes next, which will hopefully take less than a couple of weeks. I have made it sort of a New Year's resolution to try and get my channel back on track. I have worked hard to get the subs that I have right now, and many of you guys have kind of... I feel like I've left my channel by the wayside a little bit while I've been working hard on developing 0.97 and just real life stuff. And I hope that I don't continue that into the new year. In fact, I'm going to try very consciously to not, and to post more stuff for you guys to enjoy. But in any case, hope you enjoyed this preview of patch 0.97, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye!